Hello, this is RJ City, and you're listening to Live Audio Wrestling. Maybe rethink your decision.
This is The Law, Live Audio Wrestling, with the latest news, info, and interviews from the world of pro wrestling, mixed martial arts, and the best of combat sports worldwide. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Tidwell and Brady Wedham.
Welcome back to The Law, Live Audio Wrestling, here on all of your podcast providers on YouTube and SMNEradio.com. Go to Sunday Night's Main Event or SNMEradio.com. Okay, so we had Backlash from France, from Lyon, which was technically like kind of a Paris crowd, but I think they traveled 2 hours on the train or got in the car and drove 4 hours to get to Lyon, because this was the same crowd that showed up for the UFC last year. This is insane, the amount of volume setting, record setting gates, and maybe one of the better pay-per-views to ever come out of Europe. Chris, what were your thoughts watching Backlash this weekend?
The last time I heard sounds that loud coming from a crowd, they were all chanting Goldberg, Goldberg. Okay, those might have been piped in from the stereo system, and you can turn up the volume in that, but still, nonetheless, listen, I have never, and this was the same night that the UFC had UFC 301 in Brazil, and we know how those Brazil crowds are. So you got to gauge who was like, a more raucous crowd. But I got to tell you, man, that Paris crowd, they deserve to be MVP of the night, because they brought it. The fact when you saw the lights, all of the flashlights from the phones, and all the yeet, and the lights go down, and everybody's into it, and everybody's grooving, and everybody's, from the crowd point of view, is playing their part for this show as well. Like, it wasn't like they were like, sometimes you have some of those crowds, like those night after a pay-per-view crowds that are like, we're going to be assholes tonight. And they just try to screw it up by being as loud, doing silly shit, right? This Paris crowd was into this show from start to finish. And you can tell that it affected the workers, and it affected the workers in a good way, because it got them up. Listen, I can tell you firsthand, we all know what it's like, right? Well, we do, because we're not pushing buttons, but we know what it's like to be in front of a crowd that's very, very low, right? Like this one right here.
Yeah, no, we both have worked in front of crowds of maybe 4 people, and 2 of those were wives of the workers.
100%. But we also know what it's like when you work in front of tens of thousands of people.
Yep,
and you get up for those matches.
Yeah, I used to do Broadway every night, 7 days a week type thing. I was legit on Broadway in Toronto, so I've seen these big crowds. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, listen, so we know firsthand when you're out there, in front of these bigger crowds, what it does. Now, these guys are out there in front of pay-per-view in a new country, selling all new merch. I don't think that there's any merch left.
No, there couldn't be.
There's no way that, I would love to see the numbers on that, but there's no way they left with any merchandise whatsoever. There are so many people walking around France with brand new WWE belts.
They all had Cody Rhodes belts. Like, they showed on their website, Cody was in town, and it just showed like two long dinner tables just full of weight belts signed by Cody. Yeah, everybody in France definitely is walking around with WWE merch. But that was probably the loudest crowd I've ever heard, consistently from bell to bell, from the beginning of the night to the end of the night. They did not stop. 1, 2, sacre bleu! It was amazing.
Every city from this point forward, on a pay-per-view, a PLE, a Monday Night Raw, a SmackDown, whatever it is, y'all got your work cut out for you, man.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Now, let's talk about the little bit of a hiccup inside of the women's tag match. Now, you did predict this during our Backlash preview that there was going to be a title change. You predicted this.
I said what?
You predicted that there would be a title change.
That's wild.
Yeah, well, so we have new tag champions in Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill.
Sure.
There was a little bit of a hiccup. Now, a lot of people are blaming this on Rudy Charles. Some people are blaming this on Jade Cargill. I don't think people. Well, I don't know. I think it's being looked at way too much under a microscope. I think what happened is there was a miscommunication. There were some spots planned, and somebody got lost, and somebody with inexperience was. It was shown on camera to the point where even Corey Graves was saying, "I hope this is not her inexperience showing." Are we seeing, some like they had to play it off because it looked like she was lost for a second. But I do not think this was anybody's fault. I think things that happened in wrestling. I think this is just the shit that happens when you're out there, and especially in a crowd like that, it could be overwhelming. You're not hearing communication properly. You're not hearing spots being called, etc., etc. But I just had to put a note on it. I don't think it was as big of an issue as people made it out to be. And if that was your only issue throughout the entire pay-per-view, I think you got pretty friggin' lucky in terms of a wrestling show.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of people out there right now, especially that have really decided that they're going to put Jade under a microscope. Wrongfully so, if you ask me. But the reason they think that it's okay to put her under this microscope is because she's coming over from AEW. AEW had her pushed to the moon where she was like the female Goldberg of the women's division over there, running through everybody. Right? They built her up to this thing, and all of a sudden she comes over to the WWE, and they're like, yeah, we're going to have to fix some mistakes of yours. We're going to have to get you ready for the way that we do our TV show. Not the way that you did the wrestling show, the way we do our TV show. In doing so, they have to change a lot of stuff. In doing so, you find out that what she's learned now is completely different. The way that she's got to be in a position, be on your marker, be on your spot, sell it to the camera, get that emotion over even more so than trying to do the moves. Because doing the moves is secondary, right? Everybody's there to kind of see the moves, but you're there to have the emotion. And to put, so because everybody has like built her up to this point, and the WWE is presenting her at a much lower level up to this point to get her familiar with that WWE crowd. You can't just bring her over and assume that everybody watching WWE also watches AEW, because it's not the truth. There's still a lot of people that only watch one or the other. So a lot of people in WWE may not know or may not be totally familiar with Jade Cargill. So they brought her in the right way. The fact that this is the third time, really, that you've seen her in a major position on a pay-per-view, and this is what you've come up with? Remember, people, 3 other girls in that match and a referee, 4 other human beings in that match. Everybody can take some of the blame as to the entire thing getting messed up.
I don't think anybody needs to get blamed, because I think this is things that happen. It's called
You're
hiccups.
right. You're right. Blame is probably the wrong word. I'd say everybody can take some of the responsibility.
Yes, there you go.
Responsibility for the way that was presented.
Yeah.
To the camera people, to Corey Graves for even mentioning it.
Yeah, I think that was actually like, and this is the freedom that they have now, the announcers. I think that was a mistake on Corey's end. I know that he had to do something, and he was probably panicking as much as, like, what it's like. That probably felt like 10 minutes to everybody involved.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
About 13 seconds.
Thing is nobody's going to remember it. Nobody cares. The finish was still absolutely what it needed to be. Holy crap, is she ever strong as hell?
She's amazing.
It looks great, and she's going to do fantastic things.
She's going to do big things, and she's in good hands right now too. She's with someone who's experienced. I'm telling you, this is the female Road Warriors.
What I can't wait for is the heel turn.
Oh my goodness.
That's going to be dope with her when that happens, because it's going to happen.
Talk about those big bags with big dollar signs on it, because, my friend, you are going to be taking that straight to the bank when they turn her heel. Now, okay, so moving away from that, let's talk. We had Cody Rhodes retained his title. Damian Priest retained his title with a little bit of a wedge thrown into the Judgment Day, which they've been teasing for a while. So he's mad at JD McDonough or Devlin or whatever you want to call him, and he's mad at Finn Balor now. He doesn't want them involved. He wants to prove himself as a real champion. So he retains his title with a little bit of spice and salt to lead into Monday Night Raw. Now, we also had, you had said it earlier, Yeet. Jey Uso is the most over human being in that company.
It's a shame.
Why?
It's a real shame that Main Event Jey is so over in that company, and he's not going to get that belt.
He's not getting the belt.
He's not going to get that push up to that level, right? And the reality is that I think, in my opinion, I think we live in a world where Jey is getting this time in and doing what he can until his brother comes back.
And you could be right. I hope that somebody calls an audible here and looks at something like the crowd in France. We'll see what Raw's like. We'll see what the rest of the next couple months are like with Jey, if they can keep this momentum up. But if they're still cheering like this and still freaking out by midsummer or late summer, call an audible, put the belt on them, see what you can get out of this.
What would you rather see? Here's the question. What would you rather see, Brady? Would you rather see Jey Uso in a singles run with a title, right? It's not going to be the big belt or anything like that, but with a title, right? Maybe like Logan's title or something like that. Or would you rather see the Usos against the Guerrillas of Destiny?
Well, Chris, it's not about what I want. It's not about what I want. It's about what our listeners and our viewers want. So commence with the commenting. But no, I don't care either way. I just want to see Jey on TV, and I want to see him getting the pop. So do not turn Jey heel. I think that's a huge mistake if they do that. I don't think there's any need for it. I don't think that translates to heat.
I don't think they do turn him heel.
No, they won't.
I don't think turn him heel, because you can see what's happening with the bloodline. You can see that there's going to be two sides of this bloodline. You totally see that. And in doing so, I think it makes more sense for Jimmy to come back and save his brother from a beatdown from, the other Samoans, so to speak, right? Or Tongans, whatever. And be the baby face along with his brother Jey. Because his baby faces, those two are fantastic. And the heat that Jay's getting right now with this, the heat from the yeet that he's getting right now, I mean, shit, they're not giving that up. They're not giving that up just for the sake of turning him heel. They will have, Jimmy come over and ride that wave along with him.
Well, speaking of the Bloodline and Guerrillas of Destiny and Rock and Roman and the Usos and this whole thing, the MVP of this entire storyline has to be Paul Heyman. His facial expression selling all of this stuff, like he knows that there's an NWO black and white versus an NWO red coming. He's showing signs of it. He's the best, man. Paul Heyman is hands down the best.
Week after week, what you see with Paul Heyman is you see him building the highlight reel. You see him single-handedly building the story, the video sizzler that they will come up with, 6 months from now to put it all together is going to be nothing more than Paul Heyman's face through this entire thing going, I told you so.
There's
I told you this was going to happen. You didn't read my face, but this is what's going to happen. There's
a lot of things and a lot of human beings inside of the professional wrestling business that I could be jealous about. Physics, genetics, things like that. I could be jealous of all that. You know what I'm jealous of? The amount of information that Paul Heyman has in his head about how to properly use psychology in wrestling. I wish I even had a fraction of that. I'm so jealous.
There's so many people still playing checkers, even in the world of professional wrestling, even in the business end of it. There's so many of y'all still just trying to play checkers, still just trying to get down that board one move at a time. Paul Heyman is playing some 3D chess up in this motherfucker.
Yeah, he is
like 6-7 moves ahead. He's like, all right, the end of this thing is a year from now. Next WrestleMania, let's play to that. What do we do? How do we get to there? Okay, we move it backwards. And okay, what's my role? How do I, he is absolutely brilliant at understanding what the role of a manager is in professional wrestling. He is absolutely stellar and knocking it out of the park. Nobody's able to use that kind of psychology. I think that's one of the reasons you don't see other managers, really, even inside of the WWE, because you're going to get lost in that shuffle, because you're going to get compared, I think, to Paul Heyman no matter what. You know what I mean?